The human female, Kira Voss, always wore that ridiculous mask. Every single day, without fail, she'd strap that grotesque piece of metal and polymer to her face before stepping onto the bridge of our mining vessel, the Titan's wreck. The thing looked like something a deranged sculptor might create after consuming too much fermented Glorak juice. All twisted angles, dark mesh covering the mouth area, and those haunting red lenses where her eyes should be visible. Commander Thex 9 had assigned me, Junior Navigator Yolt Grimish of the Vorthak Collective, to work alongside this peculiar human for the past 6 rotations. 6 rotations! Do you know how long that is for someone of my species? We Vorthak experience time at twice the rate of these slow metabolized mammals. Every moment stretched like elastic cord about to snap. Morning, sunshine, Kira would say each cycle, her voice filtered through that mechanical monstrosity she called protection. The translator made her words sound even more sarcastic than intended. Ready to pretend we enjoy each other's company for another thrilling day of asteroid cataloging? I'd twitch my secondary arms in what humans somehow interpreted as amusement. Truth was, I found her interesting. Terrifying, yes. Completely unpredictable, absolutely. But interesting nonetheless. The other crew members gave her wide berth. Captain Hork Val, a seasoned Klenite, with 17 successful deep space expeditions under his utility belt, would actually change direction when he saw her approaching down the corridor. The Zenthroan twins, Pip and Pop, would communicate exclusively through their telepathic link whenever she entered a room, as if speaking aloud might somehow attract her attention. "She's not right," Chief Engineer Mox 12 had whispered to me during second meal period 3 cycles ago. His 4 eyes darted nervously as he spoke. "There's something wrong with that human. The way she moves, the way she anticipates attacks before they happen, the way she never removes that cursed mask." I'd wanted to defend her. Why? I still couldn't answer that question satisfactorily. Perhaps it was because she was the only crew member who treated me like an equal, rather than some junior officer fresh from the academy. Or maybe it was because she had single-handedly prevented 3 different pirate attacks since joining our expedition, always knowing exactly where to position herself, exactly when to fire. "Yolt," she'd said during the most recent attack, just 2 cycles past. "Duck." I'd dropped to the deck plating without question. Good thing, too, because a plasma bolt seared the air exactly where my primary head had been milliseconds before. She'd somehow predicted the trajectory, the timing, everything. The pirate vessel had been completely disabled within minutes, its crew demanding to know how we'd anticipated their every move. But today felt different. Today, the tension on the bridge crackled like electrical. Discharge before a storm. Captain Hork Val had received new orders from Fleet Command, orders that made his normally stoic expression twist into something resembling concern. "We're changing course," he announced, his gravelly voice carrying across the bridge. "New destination, Kepler 442b. Intel suggests significant mineral deposits." Kira's masked head turned slowly toward the captain. Even without seeing her facial expressions, I could sense her sudden alertness. "Kepler 442b. That's Ravager territory, Captain." "I'm aware," Horkval replied, his tone suggesting the conversation was over, but Kira wasn't finished. "With respect, sir, taking a mining vessel into Ravager space is like painting a target on our hull and sending an invitation to every bloodthirsty clan within 50 parsecs." The captain's 4 eyes narrowed. "Are you questioning my orders, human?" The bridge fell silent. Even the ambient hum of the life support system seemed to quiet in anticipation. This was dangerous territory. Insubordination could result in spacing, and everyone knew it. "No, sir," Kira replied, her mechanical voice devoid of emotion. "Just making sure you understand what we're flying into." I watched this exchange with growing unease. Something about Kira's posture had changed. Where she usually carried herself with relaxed confidence, now she seemed coiled, ready to spring. Her gloved hands rested near her sidearm, and her head moved in small, precise sweeps, as if cataloging every person and potential threat on the bridge. "Navigation. Set course immediately," Horkval commanded. I began inputting the coordinates, my 6 fingers dancing across the holographic interface. But something made me pause. A memory fragment, something from my academy training about that particular system. "Captain," I said hesitantly, "there's something about Kepler 442b in the database. Historical records indicate—" "Spit it out, navigator," he growled. "Multiple expeditions have gone missing in that region over the past 50 cycles. All mining vessels, all carrying similar cargo to ours." The bridge fell silent again, but this time the quiet carried weight. Heavy, oppressive weight that pressed down on all of us. Kira laughed. Actually laughed, though the sound emerging from her mask was more like metal grinding against stone. "Oh, this just keeps getting better. Let me guess, Captain. Someone offered you a very generous fee to take this particular job, didn't they?" Horkval's primary hands clenched into fists. "That's enough, human." "No, I don't think it is." She stood slowly from her station, and I noticed every other being on the bridge instinctively take a step backward. "See? Here's the thing about humans that none of you seem to understand. We have this annoying habit of pattern recognition. And the pattern here suggests we're not heading to Kepler 442b to mine anything. We're heading there to be mined. Of our cargo, our ship, and quite possibly our lives." "You're being paranoid," Chief Engineer Mox 12 said, though his voice lacked conviction. Kira's masked face turned toward him. "Am I? Tell me, Mox. When was the last time Fleet Command changed a mining expedition's destination mid-flight without explanation? When was the last time they sent a vessel to a system where previous expeditions vanished? When was the last time they assigned a single human to a crew of 17 non-humans?" That last question hit me like a plasma discharge to the central nervous system. She was right. In all my time at the Academy, in all the crews I'd studied, never once had I seen such an arrangement. Humans typically traveled in groups, with their own kind. They were social creatures, pack animals who derived comfort from familiar faces and shared cultural references. "Maybe they assigned you because you're expendable," Security Officer Vex Prime suggested, his tone deliberately cruel. Another laugh from behind that mask, but this one carried no humor whatsoever. "Oh, Vex. Sweet, naive Vex. You think I'm the expendable one on this ship?" The security officer's hand moved to his weapon, but somehow Kira was already facing him, her own sidearm drawn and aimed at his center mass. I hadn't even seen her move. One moment, she was standing casually. The next, she was in full combat stance. "How?" Vex Prime whispered. "Practice," she replied simply. Captain Horkval stepped between them. "Lower your weapons, both of you." Neither moved. I said, "Lower your weapons." Slowly, reluctantly, they complied. But the tension remained, thick enough to cut with a molecular blade. "There's something you're not telling us," I found myself saying. The words escaped before I could stop them, but once started, I continued. "Something about this mission, about why you're really here." Kira's masked face turned toward me, and for a moment I thought I saw something flicker behind those red lenses. Recognition? Approval? Fear? Smart boy, she said softly. Smarter than the rest of them give you credit for. Answer the question, human, Horkval demanded. She was quiet for a long moment, her head tilted as if listening to something only she could hear. Then, without any warning whatsoever, she began removing her mask. Wait, I said quickly, surprising myself with my urgency. Don't! Her hands paused at the release mechanisms. Why not, Yolt? I couldn't answer. Couldn't explain the sudden, overwhelming certainty that something terrible would happen if she removed that protective barrier. Instead, I stared at her, my primary and secondary hearts beating irregular rhythms. Because, I whispered, echoing words I didn't understand, we'd stop protecting you. The silence that followed was deafening. Kira's hands slowly moved away from the mask's release switches. Smart boy, she repeated, but her voice carried a weight now that made my scales ripple with primitive fear. What are you? Chief Engineer Mox 12 asked, his voice barely above a whisper. But before she could answer, alarms began screaming throughout the ship. Red warning lights bathed the bridge in hellish illumination as tactical displays lit up with incoming signatures. Ravager attack fleet! Communications Officer Tel 9 shouted over the chaos. 12 vessels, closing fast! They're demanding our surrender. Captain Horkval's face went through 17 different shades of panic. How? How did they find us so quickly? We haven't even reached the system yet. Kira's mechanical laugh cut through the alarm klaxons like a blade through soft tissue. Because, dear Captain, they were expecting us. This whole thing was a setup from the beginning. Someone sold us out. And now we're about to discover exactly how expendable Fleet Command considers this crew. The ship shuddered as the first plasma bolts impacted our shields. Shields holding at 73%, Mox 12 reported, his four hands flying over his engineering console. Return fire, Horkval ordered. With what? Security Officer Vex Prime replied incredulously. We're a mining vessel. Our weapons systems are designed to break up asteroids, not engage military-grade attack craft. Another impact, stronger this time. The lights flickered, and the artificial gravity momentarily fluctuated, sending several crew members stumbling. Shields at 46%, Mox 12 announced. I found myself looking at Kira, whose masked face remained perfectly calm despite the chaos erupting around us. She stood there, motionless, as if she were listening to something none of us could hear. There, she said suddenly, pointing at a specific section of the tactical display. Third vessel from the left, the one holding back from the main attack formation. That's their command ship. How can you possibly know that? Vex Prime demanded. Because, she replied, her mechanical voice cutting through another alarm, it's exactly where I would position myself if I were coordinating this attack. The ship shook again, more violently this time. Shields at 18%, Mox 12 called out. One more hit like that, and we're flying naked. Captain, I said, my training overriding my fear, if she's right about the command vessel, maybe we can... Can what? He snapped. Ram it? This is a mining ship, not a battle cruiser. Kira moved then, crossing to the tactical station in 3 quick strides. Her gloved fingers danced across the controls with impossible precision. What are you doing? Vex Prime shouted. Saving your lives, she replied without looking up. Though honestly, I'm starting to question why. The mining ship's limited weapon systems came online, but instead of firing at the nearest threats, they targeted the command vessel Kira had identified. The shots were perfect, surgically precise, disabling their communications array and main engines without destroying the ship entirely. Immediately, the coordinated attack faltered. The other Ravager vessels began firing wildly, no longer following tactical patterns, their movements becoming chaotic and desperate. How? Captain Horkval stared at the tactical display in disbelief. How did you know? Kira's masked head turned toward him. Lucky guess. But I could see her hands trembling slightly, could hear the change in her breathing pattern through the mask's filters. This wasn't luck. This was knowledge. Intimate, detailed knowledge of Ravager tactics and ship configurations. Who are you, really? I asked quietly. She looked at me for a long moment, those red lenses reflecting the bridge's emergency lighting. Someone who should have stayed home. The remaining Ravager vessels were retreating now, their attack broken by the loss of their command coordination. But I noticed Kira watching the tactical display with continued intensity, as if expecting something else. It's not over, she said. What do you mean? Horkval demanded. They're retreating. No, she replied, her mechanical voice carrying absolute certainty. They're regrouping. That was just the opening probe. The real attack comes next. As if summoned by her words, the long-range sensors detected new contacts. Bigger ones. Many, many bigger ones. Sweet, merciful cosmos, Tel-9 whispered. It's an entire battle fleet. 47 Ravager warships materialized on our sensors like death itself, taking physical form. Each vessel was at least 3 times the size of our pathetic mining craft, bristling with enough firepower to reduce entire colonies to cosmic dust. By the 7 moons of Klaxon, Captain Horkval breathed, his voice barely a whisper. We're dead. We're all completely dead. Not yet, Kira said, her mechanical voice cutting through the despair like a plasma torch through hull plating. But we will be, if you keep standing there making dramatic pronouncements instead of listening to me. The captain's 4 eyes swiveled toward her. Listen to you. You're the reason we're in this mess. Your presence on this ship, this whole situation. My presence? She laughed, that grinding metal sound again. Oh, Captain, you still think this is about me, don't you? I watched the tactical display with growing horror as the massive fleet moved into attack formation. Perfect coordination, textbook execution. These weren't random pirates or desperate raiders. This was a full military operation. Yolt! Kira called to me without turning around. Run a deep scan on our cargo manifest. The real one, not the sanitized version they showed us at departure. My 6 fingers hesitated over the controls. That requires command authorization. Override it, she said simply. I can't just... Yolt! Her masked face turned toward me, and something in her stance made every survival instinct I possessed scream warnings. Override it! Now! I found myself complying before my rational mind could object. The real cargo manifest bloomed across my display, and what I saw made my primary stomach lurch violently. Sweet cosmic horror, I whispered. These aren't mining supplies. The others crowded around my station, staring at the readout in stunned silence. Quantum resonance amplifiers, Chief Engineer Mox 12 read aloud. Psi inhibitor field generators, neural pathway scramblers. He looked up, his 4 eyes wide with terror. These are mind control devices, military-grade psychic warfare equipment. Bingo! Kira said, her mechanical voice dripping with satisfaction. Now ask yourselves who would want this kind of hardware badly enough to orchestrate an entire fake mining operation to transport it. Security Officer Vex Prime's hand moved to his weapon again. You knew. You knew all along what we were carrying. Of course I knew, she replied. Just like I know that incoming fleet isn't here to steal our cargo. They're here to retrieve it. The implications hit me like a meteor to the cranium. The Ravagers. They're not attacking us. They're working for whoever arranged this transport, Kira finished. Someone in Fleet Command sold out this entire crew to move illegal psychic weapons without official oversight. You were all supposed to die in a tragic pirate attack. The cargo would disappear, and whoever orchestrated this whole thing would have their hands clean. Captain Horkval's complexion shifted through several shades of rage and betrayal. Then why are you here? What's your role in this conspiracy? Kira was quiet for a moment, her masked head tilted as if listening to distant voices. The incoming fleet had stopped advancing, holding position just outside optimal weapons range. Waiting. I'm here, she said finally, because someone found out about the plan and decided to send insurance. Insurance? I asked. Someone who could make sure the evidence survived. Someone who could identify the real culprits. She paused. Someone expendable enough that if things went wrong, their death wouldn't cause political complications. The bridge fell silent except for the steady ping of the sensor array tracking the enemy fleet. Your military intelligence, Communications Officer Tel-9 said suddenly. That's why you always know where attacks are coming from. Why you can predict their tactics. Was, Kira corrected. Past tense. Now I'm just someone trying to stay alive long enough to testify. Another revelation struck me like lightning. The mask. You're not wearing it for protection. You're wearing it for anonymity. Someone out there wants you dead. And if they see your face... Smart boy, she said again, but this time her mechanical voice carried genuine warmth. Very smart boy. Suddenly, the communications array crackled to life. A harsh, guttural voice filled the bridge, speaking accented standard Galactic. Mining vessel Titan's wreck. This is Battle Commander Krex Vang of the Ravager Collective. Prepare to be boarded. Resistance is futile and will result in immediate execution. Captain Horkval reached for the communication controls, but Kira's hand clamped down on his wrist with surprising strength. Don't, she said quietly. Not yet. What choice do we have? He demanded. It's surrender or die. There's always a third option, she replied, but you're not going to like it. Before anyone could respond, she began removing her mask. No, I shouted, moving toward her instinctively. Don't do that. But she was already lifting it away from her face, and what I saw beneath made my world tilt on its axis. She was beautiful. Stunningly, impossibly beautiful. But that wasn't what made my blood freeze in my veins. It was her eyes, bright, electric blue, with an intensity that seemed to bore straight through to my soul. And there was something else. Something that made every primitive fear response in my brain trigger simultaneously. Her eyes were glowing. Actually, literally glowing with soft blue radiance. By all the gods of the void, Chief Engineer Mox 12 whispered, you're not human. Oh, I'm human, she replied, her unfiltered voice carrying harmonics that resonated in frequencies I didn't know I could hear. Just not the kind you're used to. The glow in her eyes intensified, and I felt something brush against the edges of my consciousness. Not invasive, not threatening, more like a gentle inquiry, asking permission. Scion, Security Officer Vex Prime breathed. You're a human scion. Guilty as charged, she said. Now, do you want to know why I really wear the mask? The gentle touch in my mind became more insistent, and suddenly I understood. Images flooded my consciousness. Not my own memories, but hers. I saw her as a child, accidentally reading the thoughts of everyone around her. I saw the fear in their eyes when they realized what she was, the way they backed away, the way they stopped trusting her. I saw her joining military intelligence, where her abilities were valued but never accepted. I saw her discovering the conspiracy to transport illegal psychic weapons, saw her volunteering for this suicide mission because she had nothing left to lose. And I saw what happened to people who looked into those glowing eyes without protection. They fell under her influence, became completely devoted to her welfare, would die to protect her, whether she wanted them to or not. "That's why the mask," I said, understanding flooding through me. "Because anyone who sees your real face becomes psychically bonded to me," she finished. "It's not something I can control. It just happens, and once it does—" "We'd stop protecting the ship, the mission, everything," Captain Hork-Val said slowly. "We'd only care about protecting you." She nodded. "And right now, we need you all thinking clearly if we're going to survive this." But even as she spoke, I could feel it happening. The bonding process was already underway, triggered by eye contact and proximity. My loyalty was shifting, rewriting itself at the most fundamental level. "Put the mask back on," I said urgently, "before it's too late." "It already is too late," she replied sadly. "For all of you." The moment I removed it, the process began. It can't be reversed. I looked around the bridge and saw the same realization dawning on every face. We were all compromised now, our free will subordinated to an overwhelming need to ensure her safety. "The Ravagers," I said. "They must know what you are. That's why they're waiting." "They know someone like me is on board," she confirmed. "But they don't know which one of us it is. The mask has kept my identity hidden until now." Commander Krex Vang's voice crackled through the communications again. "Your time is up, mining vessel. Prepare for boarding, or we will destroy you where you drift." Kira looked at each of us in turn, her glowing eyes filled with regret. "I'm sorry. I never wanted this to happen. But now that it has, I need you to trust me one more time." "What do you want us to do?" Captain Hork-Val asked, and I could hear the change in his voice. The absolute dedication that had replaced his earlier hostility. "I want you to let them board us," she said, "and then I want you to stay as far away from the fighting as possible." "Fighting?" Chief Engineer Mox 12 asked. "What fighting?" "There are 47 warships out there and 17 of us." Kira's smile was beautiful and terrible at the same time. 18, she corrected. "You're forgetting about me." She reached into her equipment pack and withdrew items I hadn't seen before. Advanced weapons, military-grade armor components, devices whose purpose I couldn't even guess. "You've been planning this," I realized. "The whole time, you've been planning for this exact scenario." "Planning for it? Hoping to avoid it?" she replied, sealing her armor with practiced efficiency. "But yes, if the conspiracy reached this far, if they were willing to sacrifice an entire crew to cover their tracks, I knew it would eventually come down to this." The ship shuddered as magnetic clamps engaged our hull. They were boarding. "Remember," she said, replacing her mask one final time. "Stay clear of the fighting. Let me handle the Ravagers." "All of them?" Vex Prime asked incredulously. "There could be hundreds." Behind her mask, I could see the glow of her eyes intensify. "Then it's a good thing I'm not planning to fight fair." The airlocks burst open, and armored Ravagers poured onto our ship like a tide of death. But Kira was already moving, flowing through the corridors like liquid lightning, and wherever she went, enemies simply stopped. I watched through the internal sensors as she moved through the ship. She didn't fight them in any conventional sense. Instead, she looked at them, just looked at them with those impossible blue eyes, and they turned their weapons on each other, convinced that their fellow Ravagers were the real threat. Within minutes, the entire boarding party had eliminated itself through friendly fire, their psychic conditioning turned against them by powers they couldn't comprehend or resist. "Impossible," Captain Hork-Val whispered. "How is she doing that?" "Scions don't just read minds," I said, understanding flooding through me as more of her shared memories became accessible. "The powerful ones can rewrite them. Make enemies see allies as threats. Turn entire armies against themselves." "Then why did she need us?" Tel-9 asked. "Why not just do this from the beginning?" "Because," I realized with growing horror, "the bonding process works both ways. The more she uses her abilities, the more she needs us to anchor her to reality. Without us, she'd lose herself in the psychic feedback, become something inhuman." On the sensors, we watched as the Ravager fleet began firing on itself. Ship after ship turned its weapons on former allies. Commanders convinced their own subordinates were traitors. Entire battle groups dissolving into chaos. But with each ship that fell, I could feel Kira's presence in my mind growing stronger, more desperate. She was burning herself out, consuming her own sanity to save us. "She's dying," I said suddenly. "The psychic strain is killing her." Without thinking, without any regard for my own safety, I ran from the bridge toward her location. I found her collapsed in the main corridor, her mask fallen away, those blue eyes now blazing like stars about to go supernova. "Yolt," she whispered, her voice barely human anymore. I can't hold it together much longer." I knelt beside her, taking her gloved hand in mine. "Then don't. Let us help you." "The bonding," she gasped. "It's not complete yet. If you stay with me while I finish this, you'll never be free. You'll be bound to me for the rest of your life." I looked at her, this impossible human who had sacrificed everything to save a crew that had never trusted her, never accepted her, never even tried to understand what she was going through. "Good," I said firmly. "Maybe it's time someone protected you for a change." The last of the Ravager ships exploded in the distance, their fleet destroyed by their own weapons, their crews turned against each other by powers they couldn't comprehend. Kira's eyes began to dim, the supernatural glow fading as she lost consciousness. But she was breathing, alive, and the psychic storm in my mind was settling into something manageable. The other crew members found us there, all of them drawn by the same overwhelming need to ensure her safety. We helped her back to the medical bay, where Chief Medical Officer Zan 4 pronounced her physically unharmed but psychically exhausted. "She'll need time to recover," he said, "and she'll need all of you to stay close. The bonding process has linked your mental patterns to hers. If you're separated for too long, it could damage both her psyche and yours." Captain Hork-Val looked at the unconscious human, his expression a mixture of awe and lingering confusion. "So, what happens now?" "We can't exactly return to Fleet Command with proof of their conspiracy. Half the senior officers are probably involved." "Now," I said, settling into a chair beside Kira's bed. "We protect her. We find somewhere safe where she can recover, somewhere the conspirators can't reach us." "And after that?" Vex Prime asked. I looked at each of my crewmates, seeing my own determination reflected in their faces. We were bound to her now, psychically linked in ways that transcended species or rational thought. But more than that, we'd chosen to be here. Chosen to stand by someone who had given everything to save us. "After that," I said, "we hunt down everyone responsible for this, and we make them pay." Kira stirred slightly in her sleep, and for a moment her mask slipped, revealing those extraordinary blue eyes. Even unconscious, even exhausted beyond measure, she was still the most beautiful and dangerous being I'd ever encountered. But she was also something else. Something I'd never expected to find in the depths of space. She was home. The stars wheeled outside the medical bay viewport, carrying us away from the wreckage of the Ravager fleet toward an uncertain future. But for the first time since this nightmare began, I wasn't afraid. After all, we had something worth protecting now. Something worth dying for. We had each other. And in the vast, uncaring universe, sometimes that's enough.